Hey everyone, welcome to Adobe Spotlight. Today we have an incredible guest, brand strategist, designer, and no stranger to the Adobe stage, Phil Pallen. Phil, how are you doing today?
Hello. I'm excellent. I told you this before we went on air. I'm gonna do my very best to guest today. I'm not gonna host. I'm not gonna
Yes,
take I'm just gonna sit in this chair and answer questions. That's the
I
deal.
love it. We're so excited that you're here. Before we get started, I just want to welcome chat. If you're on YouTube and Behance, we're so excited that you're here. And we would love for you to be a part. So jump in with any questions, any comments throughout the stream. We would love to have your feedback and input as we go. And then make sure that you're subscribed. If you're on YouTube, Behance, and at Adobe Live on Instagram, we would just love for you to be there so that you are plugged into all things new and upcoming. Okay, I think that's everything. So Phil, we're so excited that you're here. Could you give us a little bio and background on yourself for people who maybe aren't as familiar with you or your work?
Absolutely. Well, if our friends in the chat today are familiar with Adobe Live, my face definitely pops up here fairly often. I'm very, very proud that I've been an Adobe Express ambassador for well over 3 years now. But my career, if you want to go way back, baby, we're going way back.
Let's do
My
it.
career, yeah, let's do it. It started in actually kind of a wild way. I think you want the story, so I'm going to give you the story. I even have clips of this. So 3 months before I was set to graduate, Full Sail University, Central Florida, live right around the corner these days. But I came from Canada, moved to Florida, and I entered a lot of job and internship competitions, including one that was very public at the time for the actor Charlie Sheen. So the story goes 90,000 people entered from all over the world. And on screen, you're looking at some of the footage from my internship competition. I made it to the top 50 of this competition to become his intern at the peak of his craziness and wildness in the media. So it was my first project, was creating a social media campaign to grab people's attention and get them excited about this kind of wild. There's my first brand, my first ever logo. And I think this was our first project in After Effects. All kinds of fun stuff to grab people's attention. I didn't end up becoming his intern, but I made it to the top 50, and I had a handful of clients that said, Phil, we saw you in this competition. Would you be able to help me with my social media, help me with my brand? And the answer in those days was always yes. Even if I didn't know how to do something, I said yes and figured it out.
That's definitely a good way to get started. I mean, that was an incredible beginning to everything. So you've been around since even before Express was Express, is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm basically a dinosaur in that realm.
Well, I was going to go with more of like expert of all things Express. So could you tell us a little bit more about being an evangelist for Adobe Express?
Oh, it's such an honor for me. I when I think back to one of my first projects, one of my first ever brands reaching out, it was actually at the time Adobe Spark. It was just an email that said, Phil, we spotted you on an Instagram Live, is actually where they found me. And they said, we see that you're a content creator, which I barely was at the time, but you're a brand strategist and a content creator, and we'd love for you to post. We'd love for you to try Adobe Spark and post about it. And I thought, wow, Adobe emailing me. I think anyone in our ecosystem agrees that that's always a nice email to receive. And I joined the ambassador program when there were around 30 ambassadors total. Now we have well over 200 all over the world. And I get to do so many fun things. I've been involved with some training for ambassadors. You'll see me pop up in all kinds of realms at Adobe. So I work with education, enterprise, the community team, Adobe Acrobat, Adobe Firefly, beta testing, new launches, Adobe Live, of course, and I've spoken twice at Adobe Max. So yeah, pretty much when Adobe says, Phil, would you do something? The answer is yes. And I really, really love the work and the opportunities.
All the stuff that you put out for Adobe is absolutely incredible. So we're so glad that you're definitely a part of that. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got interested in graphic design and what started you on this journey?
Yeah. I actually have some fun visuals for this. So why don't I share my screen?
Perfect.
It's just kind of like a little show and tell moment. I'm used to doing live demos, and obviously got to work from Express today.
Yes,
But Emily, I pulled some photos, some visuals from the archives for you. I hope you appreciate these.
I'm ready.
This was my first ever brand photo. Fun story about these boots. I bought them from Nordstrom. They were $350, and that was pretty much the total amount of money I had in my bank account when I bought them for this photo shoot. I had fully planned to return them after taking photos in them. Nordstrom has a really good return policy. Except I scuffed the bottom of the boots
No.
jumping off the bench. Yes, so I had to keep them. I guess I didn't have to, but I felt guilty returning them. So still have those boots somewhere.
I think that you're
Um,
getting your money's worth though. If we're still talking about it years later, I think you got your money's
yeah,
worth, you know?
I think so. I think so too. So for me, moved out to LA and had a handful of freelance clients, and that's really where my business began. I never studied design formally, but I think I always had generally, good taste. And I, for the first few years, worked on my own. On screen, I'm showing you my wonderful brand identity designer, Kostya, over in Moldova, and his wife, Era. And we'll look at some of the projects that we've created together. I know you're going to ask me about some of those milestone moments in my career, but one of them was deciding, do I want to be a graphic designer or do I want to be a brand strategist? And if I want to be a brand strategist, then I need to be ready to bring on talent. So this picture is showing several years after meeting and finding Kostya, my brand identity designer, on Behance of all places. How appropriate.
We love Behance
I
here.
Yes, it's always been where I go to find creative talent. And I remember seeing his portfolio and going, wow, I need him in my life. He's so good. And we worked together on my own brand. Actually, I have some visuals again. This actually went over to Moldova and taught a workshop, and it was so fun to have him there a few years ago. But this was Kostya and I worked together on my own visual identity. So that was my logo. I'm sure we'll talk about my process, but I'm a big believer in having more than one logo, really building a logo system so that you're set up for success in all the places that you want to show online. And that has certainly evolved over the years. So actually, by the way, if you look at my camera, I have my logo tattooed onto my wrist.
Wow.
And that was, yeah, I'm holding it up. You can, so that was probably a good move so that I would stop rebranding. Although even if as I look at this slide on my screen, this logo was still an iteration of what I had initially, thinned it out. And the thing is we all evolve, companies or people, we all evolve in real life. And I feel that branding is not about creating something that's untrue or exaggerated. Branding is about achieving consistency between the in-person experience and the online version of you. And so this has been the brand that I've been working with for the last few years, color and font choices. And if any of our viewers have played around in Express, then they're going to know how easy it is to get set up in Express with your brand fonts, your colors, your graphics, even templates. And this is something I'm very passionate about for me, for my own brand, and when I share this out, but also for my clients. I've had over 350 clients in over 34 countries around the world. So, I get hired to create a system and to ideally work together to achieve that consistency between the in-person experience and the online version. And tools like Express give my clients, some of them not are overly tech savvy, the freedom, the ability to stay within the parameters of their personal or their company brand. And that gives me a lot of joy.
I love that. I have a question that might be a little more basic, but how would you define what a brand strategist does or what that looks like on your day to day?
No question is too basic, by the way. If you
Okay.
ever feel like it's simple, you should ask it anyways, because chances are if it's something you're wondering, then other people are also wondering it. I actually have a good story that I didn't plan on telling you, but it
Ooh,
relates to my job title. When I started in the early days, I thought to myself, I'd really like to hire a branding agency, even though that's what I do for a living. I've, assembled creatives and I've got people working with me. I should go through this experience myself. And so 1 year after successful business, I made it. 1 year in, I thought, I'm going to, the money I have saved up, I'm actually going to hire a brand identity designer, one that I really looked up to. Again, found them on Behance. And we went through the whole process of designing my brand. And I wanted to be in the passenger seat, much like I am right now with you. I'm used to hosting. And but I think it's important to be in the passenger seat. For me, I was so early in business that I wanted to learn how other people did it, and I wanted to refine my systems, and I wanted to get better. And the only way to do that for me was learning, from the experience of working with others. And these guys, they no longer exist. It was a branding agency in Dallas. They said, Phil, what's your job title? And I didn't have one. Actually, I think I had one and I called myself a social media designer, which doesn't even make sense. Like, what even is that? But I thought that was it at the time. And they said, Phil, based on what we've learned from you, um, based on what you've described, the impact that you make on your clients, to us, that sounds like you're a brand strategist. And it was that moment in time, the output that I got from that experience in working with them, more than just having a visual identity, which I've since redesigned, as I mentioned, with Kostya. But for me, the moment where they gave me permission to call myself a brand strategist was career defining, if you will. It's something that by getting that permission, I stuck with it, and it's what I continue to classify as my job title. I might also add keynote speaker, and I might add content creator. Those are things that I'm doing on a routine basis as well. But really, it comes back to this idea of being strategic about your branding. And as a brand strategist, I am obsessed with figuring out what makes you great in real life. How can we recreate that experience online? That's what I feel my job is.
That was a robust answer. That was perfect. What do you think the most important or the most focused way to bring together your in-person and online presence? What's like the key to that, if you had to summarize it or give us like a few points?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Now I know why they ask you to host these. These are good questions. Um, I have a process that I follow that I'll probably walk through in a second, but even before the process, I think so much of this process or this experience, it's kind of like someone brings you the gift, and my job as a brand strategist is to figure out what the wrapping paper is for that gift. So it never gets old. Clients that email me that have reached a certain point in their business where they've reached a certain level of success and they've done it mostly on their own and they're ready for input from someone else. And this is the analogy I use with them. You bring me the gift, you've done the hard work. Now we just have to figure out what wrapping paper we need to use so people pay attention to you. So you stay top of mind for your ideal
Mm,
audience.
I
What
love
can we
that.
do that's going to make them remember you as the person to go to for, right? Insert insert brand here. Those are things that I'm constantly thinking about, and also just this idea of consistency. It's not about fabricating something or exaggerating something that isn't the truth. It's really just about taking inventory of self. So self-awareness. Um, and sometimes I can help with that. Sometimes it's kind of like holding a mirror. If I was to hold up a mirror to you, Emily, and say, hey, here's what I see and here's what I hear. I don't know you that well, but based on my experience of you, based on what I've heard from you, here's what I think, in a few words, here's what it is you do, and here's what makes you different.
Yeah, that's a very honest and very vulnerable process, I think, but it sounds like you're able to guide people through that well and produce, right, this brand for them that is succinct and identifying for who they are. And I think that's so key. Is this part of your brand that you're showing us right now? I want to talk about these beautiful icons that we're seeing here.
You love these icons. That's why I put them in the slides. You made a
Thank
comment
you.
about these. So I was
I'm
like, Emily, we got to get
obsessed.
these in. But I use these icons. Yeah, I'm a big fan of icons. I'm sure we'll touch on this, but iconography is so powerful because it transcends different languages. Although now in Express we can hit translate up here, not to go into demo mode, but this is extremely exciting. We can actually just click down here. It detects English. Well, let's say, for example, we wanted to translate these words into Japanese and into Spanish. I said I wouldn't go into demo mode, but I kind of am. So you have to just let me.
I
You
love
have to
it.
just let me. So here we go. There's the Japanese version that we just literally duplicated. And there's the Spanish version. How cool is that? You can do that
Wow,
directly in Express.
that's incredible. I've never seen that done live before.
I'm glad you like it. That might happen a few times because I am a bit of a demo guy. But I like icons because they explain the process or the way in which we can access you, the way you do things, and not just branding you with a logo or with a name. Iconography, I often liken this to access points or different routes that lead back to you. So not just what are you, who are you, but how do you do what you do in an interesting and unique way? So for me as a brand strategist, working with companies and people, I really, people was how I got my start, but the process I follow is the same. Position your brand, build something to show for it. That's a lot of what we can use our Adobe apps, including Express, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Premiere. That's what we can use these creative tools for. And then we stick a for sale sign out front of the house, take that house to market, and we promote it. So that could be anything from content strategy, social media strategy, SEO. Those are maybe some of the obvious ones. Also editorial placement, more traditional media. There's all different kinds of advertising. There's all different kinds of ways that we can drive traffic and conversion to your brand. But that's the process that I follow that has seemed to work regardless of industry.
I think this is going to be a perfect segue then into my next question, which is, could you walk us through your creative process then when working with a client, from ideation to execution?
Yes, I might even just stay on the same slide then, because I think this really does help visualize it. So when I'm positioning a brand, I do what's called a brand audit, and I am always trying to figure out the variables to this formula. What is it you love paired with something others need and are willing to spend money on?
Hmm.
That's the case with any business, right? Any good business satisfies a need. And if you can do that really well, then there's inherent demand for your services or your product. And so when I'm positioning a brand, I'm thinking, okay, where is there a need that you can satisfy like every good business does? But also, what is it you love to do? Wouldn't it be nice? And I know our our hosts and our guests on Adobe Live, it brings me so much joy to be able to hop in here and share ideas and share visuals, share projects, teach methodologies for branding, for social media. Like this is my dream, is to be able to teach and share and communicate in this medium that it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like work. And it's honestly my dream that everyone's job feels like that. How can you be so fulfilled from your career that it doesn't feel like work? Not every day is going to feel like that. There's going to be some days in your ideal career that are still going to feel like work, but it's something you love so much that you would almost do it as a hobby. Those are things I think about in the positioning of a brand. Um, I'll show you some of my projects coming up. I've got some queued up on Behance that I'm excited to share with you. Plus, I told you I'm not gonna host today, but
You
you
can
gotta let
host
me
if you
just have
like
my
to.
moments. Yeah,
I'm
no.
happy to walk over. If you want to walk over to Behance and take a look at those now, I think this could be a great time. Or if you want to demo and Express since you're there, we would just love to see more of your work and your process.
Yeah, good idea. Let's hop over to Behance and we can always hop back over to Express. I will, by the way, Emily, I was going to say to you, I've been rebranding over the last 6 months and I haven't showed anyone outside of my own company and my mom. And so
And we're
we'll
going to
get to
see
kind of
it
look at that.
today,
Yes, you're
perhaps.
going to see it
Oh my
today.
goodness. Do you
That's
hear
your
that,
reward for
chat?
hanging out.
Oh my gosh,
Yes,
wow.
we're going to look
It's
at my
worth it.
rebrand that we've been hard at work on. So this is one of my earliest projects actually with Kostya. And I'm just, I look at this and it brings back so many great memories. Chandresh Bardwaj is one of my all-time favorite clients and collaborators. This was his brand, Break the Norms. And I always like to think if we've done our job, you can look through a visual brand and really get a feel for the mood, the feeling. This project is probably 6 or 7 years old. I thought it would be a fun one to start at because when I'm branding, I pay attention to trends, but ideally a brand is timeless and you can still be timeless and be colorful and bold. But I mean, even look at that monitor. That monitor is old school. That's how we know. And I was doing mock-ups. I thought this was so cool.
The tech always
Um,
gives it away, I feel like.
the tech gives it away.
Right.
So there's iconography, which will come up in every single project that I've ever done, not just branding who you are, but branding how you do what you do, which is just one more opportunity to be unique or to show your uniqueness. So in this case, sub brands represent the different verticals of the business. So a leadership e-commerce store, a blog, sharing information, events, workshops, a book, and an about page. And I think, branding, really, there's so many opportunities to create something that can be consistent across print and web. And so even if these posters will never get printed, it's still the concept there that could actually translate to an Instagram post, a carousel. Even if these t-shirts are never going to be printed, even though I really would love one, that's still this pattern, this art can inspire so many amazing things. I really have to give credit to my designer, Kostya. This is one of well over 100 projects that we've done in a decade of working together. And the truth is, Emily, like I get to be involved. I get to sit between the client and the designer. Um, in most cases, the designer doesn't interact at all with the client. That's my job and my
Right.
team's job. And so it is a fun position to be involved with the creative decisions, but to also listen. Listen, I love to talk. I'll talk your ear off all day. But my job is really to listen and identify, those opportunities that we can translate individuals. And I think yeah, that's what my job. I think that's what my job is. You asked me that question earlier, but I think I only properly answered it now.
I love the colors on this. I think oftentimes people think timeless and they think, oh, it has to be black and white. But what you're showing here
Yeah.
is gorgeous and definitely timeless and yeah, outside of that. So this is incredible work.
I am so glad you like it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you like it. I actually that you remind me there's a really important point that I don't get to talk about as often because a lot of times I'm teaching and it's so fun in this opportunity with you to like talk about design,
Yeah.
because this is something we do really quietly, with the client and with my designer, but I don't follow the rules. I don't follow the rules. I don't like following the rules.
He doesn't
You know,
want to
you
follow
you
the
can
rules.
I don't want to follow the rules. You can tell me, let's brand a dentist. What's a color that you might want to avoid? Well, brown or even a beige, right?
Right.
And this is an example where we broke the rules. We're not going to brand a dentist with a stereotypical Apple icon or a toothbrush or even worse, a big tooth. We normally try to find some really strong sources of inspiration. Um, we won't always know those before they go to the designer, but we typically like to come up with like 3 or 4 or 5 concepts. And I'm never going to tell a designer like you have to do it this way. I think when you work with us, that's the difference of maybe working directly with a graphic designer or working with, a brand strategist that owns an agency. Like we've got a team ready to listen and to create something truly unique. So here you're seeing the mark that was derived from those two sources of inspiration. Again, I'm designing a brand here. We're designing a brand. I say I, but it's really we. This one again is also, a few years old, but it stands the test of time. And this is a dentist and but not just a dentist, it's a dentist that's forward thinking with technology. And that was something, that was really rapid to evolve. And that was something we wanted to visualize with the hummingbird,
It's a
you
great
know?
mark. I think it's so forward thinking, which obviously matches again and closing that gap of who this person is in real life versus who they are digitally. I think this is an excellent example of all of that.
I'm so glad you like it. Again, we're always trying to think, how can a brand exist out in the wild, both digitally and print? And so I love foil. I love to experiment with
Mm.
gold, silver, and other metallic foils. Um, these aren't things that are necessarily going to be printed exactly in this particular stage of a brand concept, but I think it's really important to explore what the possibilities are and constantly come back here for inspiration. I open my own brand board probably once a day. It's embarrassing to admit. I've looked at it for a long time, but I get ideas every single day in my own brand board. It's what we would call this kind of long cascading, either in a PDF or in a long cascading, yeah, usually PDF. Um, yeah, so that's another one where we kind of broke the rules. I'm just kind of clicking around now and showing you some of my favorites.
Chat is absolutely loving all of your work. They say it's incredible and it's amazing because you break the rules that you're getting these types of results. So chat is absolutely blown away by everything you're showing.
Chat. Thank you. Thank you. And you really are getting a sample of it today. On Behance, we've focused on the projects that we have that we're collaborators on. So I'm on here with Kostya, with Era, who is Kostya's wife and is an icon designer. And she is so incredible. She's so incredible at iconography. And we work together on, pretty much every brand project we're working on nowadays. But we're big believers in creating something timeless. This is one of my all-time favorite projects. This is for a jewelry store in California. And again, multiple logo concepts. So this would exist beautifully in an email signature. We want to think about stationery. I love premium brands. I love luxury brands because I think branding gets even more weight in those contexts, right? And so that gives us more opportunity to do those little details like this would make an amazing, piece of stationery or tissue paper. I think we have an example coming up. Oh, yeah, we do, baby. How about that for
Wow.
tissue paper? Um, I love, love, love working with luxury brands because they care about branding. They care about the little touch points. And a touch point isn't exclusive to luxury. Also, a touch point doesn't have to be expensive. I can't tell you, I didn't actually grab one because I didn't think I was going to talk about it, but I have these little postcards that I hand write when someone books a brand audit with me. And on the intake form, they have to put their mailing address. And I write a little postcard. I handwrite it and pop it in the mail wherever it needs to go to the client. I just say, thank you so much for trusting me and my team to guide you forward. We really look forward to working with you. And so what does that cost me? Probably 10 cents to print and 50 cents for a stamp to put it in the mail. And I can't tell you how many people, comment on it, how much they appreciate that touch point. So I would encourage our chat and our replay, viewers, like think really about what are those small little steps that you can take that really embody the kind of person or the kind of company you are in real life. It could literally be a handwritten postcard in the mail. I've been doing it for years because I love, who doesn't love receiving a little piece of mail?
I feel that's really stand out too. I don't think I've heard of a designer, maybe at the end of a project or something like that, but I love that you like set your best foot forward that way. I think that's a great idea.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. This is, as I'm scrolling through here, I'm like, this is one of my very favorite brands ever. Like ribbon design, any opportunity where we get to go deep into something and conceptualizing. My designer, to his credit, took this one even further than the scope of this project.
Wow.
He's got thousands of thumbs up and appreciations on Behance for this project, and it's understandable. Can I show and tell one more? This is the most recent one.
Yes, absolutely.
Yay! It's so fun, Emily. I never get to talk about these things. I'm always like teaching ideas or social media or talking about AI, and I get to talk about design with you. It's so fun.
Good. I'm glad. We need the stage to hear more about your thoughts. I think it's so important.
So I'll always show at the top, the what we would call the logo mark semantics. So in this case, this is a high-end cabinet maker. And we kind of took that kind of structural design. I love architecture and I love interior design. I think that's been a huge inspiration for me as well. My brand identity designer, Kostya, his background is in interior design. And so we were, that's always like hugely inspirational for us. So this is the kind of project that really excited us. The idea to bring together a letter form, common in branding, right? Because if you think about it, using your initials or your letter, that's not likely something that's going to change in your lifetime. So it's a safe bet to use for branding. In my case, I use P. In this case, we use two B's. So I guess maybe we got a style. We got a style for sure. Identify the primary logo, come up with a logo system. Again, being able to plug these into all different kinds of uses. This would be great on the website, top centered. This would be great in all different kinds of uses that are horizontal. The other thing I would like to call out is that we normally custom set and design the logo mark. So it's not just a font that you would pull and call it a day and good. And as we think about AI in particular, now democratizing design and democratizing aspects of design, we're going to see this gap widen where there's going to be a need for high-end designer and really, lots of touch points in the design process, which I think we do well. You're also going to get these logo makers and you're going to get logo templates. There's nothing wrong with them, but you won't be able to stand out to the degree that a really talented creative can help you with. And so this gap is going to widen. People are going to be doing some things themselves using features and tools that have been democratized thanks to AI. But creatives, my friends in the chat that are creatives, I feel strongly that if anything, in an age of AI, you're going to be even more needed. You're going to be even more needed because there is a need for people to do human touch work well, and that includes design.
So well said. So fear not, AI is not coming for you. It's going to actually help and change a little bit of the premium brand offering, it sounds like.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I'm glad you shared that though. When you shared that yesterday with me, I was like, oh, that's such a good point. I'm glad that you're going to bring that up. So I'm glad we got to it.
These were little signs that we had around the showroom. So that was, again, an opportunity for iconography to just create some visual interest in the physical space. In this case, it was a showroom. So I just credit to Era. I just love, love, love. I love a good set of icons because it's in some cases even more memorable than a logo mark itself. And big believer in consistent and complementary typography. So normally I would choose one font for headers, one font for body, and then I mess all that up and break the rules and come up with something different. So that's the rule that I always break, you know? But in some cases like this, we'll use a custom font for H3 or for captions, stylized letters. For mine, I use a stencil kind of look for my numbers on social media and such. Again, here you can see like the way we use a number. So whenever we're visualizing how a brand should look on web, we're creating some styles. Also interesting that we really think a lot about web in the development of a brand identity. Our brand identity isn't something we just ship and then hand it off to a web designer to figure out. We're thinking about the ways in which a brand can look on the web in this stage, even if it's just to plant the seed and be slightly modified based around parameters of what we can pull off on the web. This is kind of, yeah. So yeah, I'm just scrolling through here.
Let me ask you a question about icons. I feel like icons are something that for some brands are left behind or kind of like an afterthought. What do you think helps really refine your icon process or really making effective icons?
Switch my camera because I think I did a little freeze moment there, but you can see me up here now.
Yes, you look good.
Great. I was a little distracted. So the question was about iconography
Definitely.
and what creates consistent icons.
Consistent icons or icons that are just a little bit more exact, I think, than like more generalized icons, or like what's your process to getting these really focused and unique icons?
Thank you. Yeah. It's such a good question, Emily, because icons, as it fits the dialogue we're having around democratized design and what we might be able to pull, an icon set, for example, from Adobe Express. You can actually go under assets, the design assets, and there's a whole tab for icons and shapes. But custom designed icons are really special. They're really special, and this in itself is an art form. So I think you want to look at things like line weight is hugely important. If you are sourcing your own icon set, I would recommend trying to match line weight. If you're pulling from different collections, that can be tough. Of course, if you're working with a designer, which is always the best bet, then you can work with someone who's going to be able to match that. That's a dead giveaway that you kind of just went and pulled a bunch if they don't match, or if even worse, if they're different colors. Kicks me into high gear. I'm like, no. But generally, if I'm designing a brand, for example, where um, where we got to do it quick or we're doing it on a budget, I will normally go with like a certain style, either outlined or like filled in icons, but you definitely want to stick with a certain style. It's very obvious that the icons that I have on screen were custom designed. They all match beautifully together. So those are
Very
things
nice.
to think about. Yeah. Or even if you find an icon you like in a library. So the Noun Project is a popular destination to go for icon sourcing. Shout out to Edward Bortman, who I actually met, the founder of the Noun Project, my first week that I moved to LA in 2011 at Creative Mornings. And I will give a workshop for Creative Mornings in a few weeks for Adobe Express. I love our small little world. Um, but I think it's a Noun project that has the integration with Express, giving you access to thousands and thousands of icons. Stick with one particular icon style or set. So if you find one icon that you like, try to find the related icons in that set so that you can stick with those kind of characteristics and styles, if that makes sense.
Great advice. Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question. So, you're showing us incredible client work and that you've poured all your time and effort into. So, how are you managing your client work while managing your own brand and balancing the two?
Okay, that is tough to do, and I would say nearly impossible to do on your own.
Okay.
And so the only way, I mean, I love this little like inscription on a cabinet. Isn't that like such a dream come true?
Yeah.
Um, so the only way that I can do this is with a really fantastic team, fantastic and capable and passionate team. So I really like to kind of put my head in a lot of different places. I love to be involved with client projects, but then, as you know, I have to jump over to somewhere like Adobe Live and teach and interact and hop over to social media and create my own content. Create content that puts us out front of our ideal audience that want to hire us for agency work or want to hire me for speaking engagements or content projects. So it is very much a balancing act. You're gonna love this because here are those amazing icons in action. Ooh-wee.
They're amazing.
So it's a balancing act for sure, but I think I love my job and I love every aspect of my job. So I kind of thrive in the chaos. And I'm always just really trying to find the very best people to have on my team to help deliver that experience, whether it be a client I'm working one-on-one with or someone I'm giving a presentation to, thinking about these touch points, thinking about their needs. There's absolutely no way I could do this on my own. And interestingly enough, my own career has changed a lot. If I go back to Express, I think I actually have a visual for you of my very first project for Adobe Express at the time, Adobe Spark. But it was basically, let me punch in closer. It was this video on feed, giant zit in my forehead, show must go on. And I had no idea what I was doing, Emily. No idea. I think it
You
took me
delivered.
6 hours to make it. A project like, let's take a look at this. Anyways, you got to start somewhere and you got to lean into what it is that you're most passionate about, right? So
Yeah.
so I love creating content. I love working with brands and I specifically love working with Adobe. So I position myself to do the kind of work that I really enjoy. I do a lot of workshops, big and small, and I love one of the things I'm so excited about is that we have tools nowadays that we did not have 3, 4, 5 years ago that democratize design and branding for people that are a little intimidated or nervous by technology. It was more difficult back in the day. I was looking at this camera over here, but I forgot I'm over here now. It was difficult back in the day to say, hey, here's your brand, and here are the rules, here's what you need to follow. But now with tools like Adobe Express, it is so much easier to stay on brand and to be able to create quickly, right? So if we hop over here to your stuff, we can go to our brands and libraries. I'm working on my new brand in here. It's not all done yet, but I know we'll get there. I've got my photos, some of my brand new photos. I've got templates here that I'm adding, my colors. I even have my handwriting as a font integrated into my latest brand identity, which I'm very excited about. But it's all here, so there's no confusion over there's no confusion over what I can use and what I can create with to stay on brand.
What advice would you have for clients who are maybe a little bit nervous to try using Adobe Express or try making videos or stepping into a new platform for them? What advice do you have for your clients to encourage them to start doing that type of work?
The advice I would have is advice I gave myself back in the day when I made my first project for Express. At the time, it was called Spark. You're not going to be an instant expert the first time you hop in. There's a lot to look at. So when you land on the dashboard, it's going to look something like this. And I think it actually is really well designed to allow you to dip your toes in. Every business owner and every content creator's needs are unique. And so, we have on the homepage, we have the AI features powered by Adobe Firefly integrated. And, AI as a topic right now is really overwhelming, really overwhelming. It's hard to know, like, for example, what prompt do I type into ChatGPT? If you've never done it, you're going to have no idea what to even start with. I actually suggest starting with generative AI for image creation. Okay. And my platform for that is Firefly. So here, literally, we don't even have to leave the homepage of Express. We can type in a prompt, text to image. We can create anything that we want to create. So it could be let's try one. It could be minimalist, office with yellow wallpaper and plants. Okay, I'm gonna click generate. So what's really exciting is that prior to being able to use tools like this, text to image, we would think about how can we source this as a stock photo? And we might find something that's kind of like what we want, but it might not be exact. And so I really believe tools like this are enabling creatives to be even more creative. We're able to, bring to life concepts like never before. It used to have I either sketch it, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's so much we can do with AI to ideate and to even refine those prompts. So one of the best pieces of advice I got from it was Tomash, who is a designer on the Firefly team. He and I did Adobe Live together in person in San Francisco many months ago. He said, Phil, never accept the first result you get from AI. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's actually really good advice. We choose from the three or the four that it produces, but he said, constantly work on refining it. So what's missing from here? Maybe we want I don't know, you get the idea. There's so many things that we could add based on our goals. And I am particularly excited about AI for people that are overwhelmed or overwhelmed with content creation as a business owner. This enables you to have a safe space to explore and to play and to be creative.
Yeah, and Adobe Express really has all the points to bring it together, right? You can do the generative, you can do the overlays, you can do video, you can do it all right here, which is incredible. Are there other resources that you use like in your daily life to either stay creative or just to be working on your client work?
Yeah, I mean, as a look how cool that is. So what I did was I just changed the style here to layered paper
Wow.
just to see what that did. I actually use layered paper a lot for blog thumbnails.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I like look how creative that is. It's just so cool. It literally looks like art. Um, yeah, I get really excited about this, as you can see. One of the unique parts of my job is that I typically have an inbox full of emails from brands that are wanting me to make videos about their platform or include them in a roll-up video. Um, and so I get to try a lot of different things. I was one of the first affiliates for some popular AI avatar tools. And so, copywriting tools for marketing and sales copy, hundreds. I think I've done 80, yeah, maybe not hundreds, but no, probably hundreds. But I've done, in terms of brand deals, I've done almost 100 brand deals in 3 years.
Wow.
Adobe Express being my largest. It's definitely one that keeps me busy daily. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Um, and actually to that point, so yes, if Adobe has a tool that I can use, that's always my go-to. And it's not just because I'm working with Adobe. The fact is, particularly in the AI landscape, um, Adobe is a brand that you can trust based on ethics and transparency. So there's something called the Content Authenticity Initiative. And even before I started working as an ambassador with Express and with Adobe, I would question brands, say AI avatar tools, and say, hey, you know, before you use my face, or we make an avatar out of my face, I need to know that you're an ethical brand. That my likeness isn't going to be used for something crazy and wild. Back in the day, they said, yeah, we're part of this thing called the Content Authenticity Initiative, which was created by Adobe at the time, over 800 brands, now well over 2,000 brands. I'm a member of the Content Authenticity Initiative. I am passionate and I get fired up about this. So, Adobe's not only part of it, Adobe invented it. Adobe is literally leading the charge in transparency in the use of AI. So, content credentialing is something you'll encounter in Photoshop, in Illustrator, and many of the Adobe apps. Anytime you're using Firefly, it's really important that we use AI to generate images in a way that also gives credit to the creators and the artists that are often creating the things that are being sourced. That needs to be done properly. And not every brand is doing it properly. Adobe is doing it properly. So everything that is generated from Firefly or from Adobe, you can feel good in knowing that what's being created is being sourced responsibly. Gets me all fired up.
Chat has a question for you on the topic. They said, "Hi Phil, the image on screen is really beautiful.
Hello.
My question is, how do we put our footprint over such images?" I think they're talking about the office image we were just looking at, or that we
Oh
generated.
yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, I might even hop over to Adobe Firefly in the browser. We'll hop back to Express in a second. Text to image, the feature that we looked at in Express, that's version 1, which is cleared for commercial use or safe for commercial use, which is really good if you're a small business, a solopreneur representing a company, and you want to create images that can be used to promote your business. It is safe to do that in Express. If you hop over to the browser, um, at this particular moment in time when we're recording this, we have text to image. There are 2 versions. There's 1 and then there's 2. And text to image 2 is really, really exciting. It's still in beta. So, really, at this particular stage, it's kind of like an experiment. But we know with the direction that things are headed, let me just pump up the size on this. We know that this will, when ready, when the hardworking lawyers at Adobe have it all cleared for us, we'll be able to use and integrate this as well. But I want to show you something really cool in text to image 2. So, text to image 1, which we just looked at, you are pretty much um, you've got the text prompt that you can ideate and modify until you get it just right. So adding your footprint might be adding in some colors, some styles, some shapes, some design elements in Express. What I want to show you with text to image version 1, and I'm going to use a prompt that I love to use in my demos: chocolate airplane with marshmallows and confetti. I went to Adobe Stock to try, oops, I went to Adobe Stock to try and source this image. Let's actually go to Adobe Stock really quick.
Phil, I just
So,
want to give you a note. We're almost in our last 10 minutes here, which is absolutely crazy. So if we want to make some time at the end to go through your rebrand, since we're so excited to see it, I just want to make a note of that with you.
good call. I'll make
Okay.
sure we jump into that here shortly. So, tried to source this image on Adobe Stock, couldn't find it. Back to Express, or back to Firefly rather. I'll click generate on this. It was the question on how do we add our footprint on this. In this particular case, let's see what we get. We've got it. Have a look at that. I mean,
Wow.
how cool is that? So this is Firefly Image 2. You can see the different model that's being used. I recommend people hop over here and try it out and experiment with it. What I really love is the ability to upload a reference image. So this is very specific. These are chocolate covered marshmallows that I found from Adobe Stock. This could be a brand photo. It doesn't even have to be related to what the prompt is. In many cases, I'll actually upload my own photo wearing this shirt, which is a brand color. I'll upload that photo and it will give the AI a reference point to be able to add design elements that it gathers from that. Okay. So we just click generate again. We're going to see these chocolate covered marshmallows influence this design, and boom. So when I tell you that AI, specifically Adobe Firefly, which we can trust using, is enabling creators to be so creative. Like I haven't felt this creative in so long. I get to sit here and just imagine what I want to create and tweak it until I'm pleased with whatever my project is. So that's an example. Hopefully that answers your question.
Incredible. And a delicious example too. I'm getting hungry looking at this. Cool. Well, Phil, do you want to jump over into showing us your new rebrand since we've been waiting for that?
I would love to. Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing.
So same logo since I have it tattooed to myself. But you'll see here some updated logos. I'm launching a membership community this summer. So I'm going to put my ideas in video format, worksheets, and all kinds of stuff. That's what Brand Masters is down here. Brand new colors. So I've kept some of my legacy colors, my pink and my turquoise, a light turquoise, or kind of a seafoam color. And I'm going darker with my palette. And I should also mention that photography is always my kind of source inspiration for branding projects. So in this case, I went and did photos first, which you'll see kind of sprinkled throughout here and some of the other bits. I've got a new pattern that I just showed you. I feel like in this age of like technology and AI, I'm going to be talking about these things a lot, but I want to lean into the things that make me human. I sketch and I draw and I doodle my own handwriting, which isn't particularly beautiful, but it's mine. And so I turned it into, I'll pump the size up on this. I turned it into a font that I'm going to be using on my website. So this gives you a preview of what my updated website concept is going to look like. So I actually have my own handwriting in as the form font when you contact me, which is so fun.
It
So a
reminds me of,
little, yeah.
oh, it reminds me of the letters that you're sending to people of, welcome to working together. It feels like the same touch point.
And this is what my feed will start to look like over the next few months. You'll hopefully see a little evolution, and I love icons. Can you tell?
We all have icons in the stream here.
And then this is how some of the print assets will look. But the truth is, when I'm making things in business for my clients or for myself, I have to have a brand. I need inspiration. I need excitement to move forward in business. So there are times when, for example, a book, I've actually designed the cover before I've written the book. That's just how I operate.
Speaking of books, is there a book coming out in the future that we should be keeping an eye out for?
Did you like that segue? How was that for a segue?
It was perfect.
At work, putting the finishing details on this book, which is available for pre-order on Amazon. It'll publish in October. Adobe Express is mentioned 22 times in the book, and Firefly, probably just as many, as well as all kinds of other tools and advice that I have for small business owners that are trying to navigate AI with excitement without overwhelm, is really kind of how I'm approaching this. But yeah, I've been quietly chipping away at this, and I'm glad I've got a few months to kind of get organized and ready before the launch that will happen later this year. But yeah, I talk a lot about Adobe in this book because I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the work we're doing, and I think it's really important.
Definitely mark your calendars. Chat says that someone says they ordered 5 copies this morning. They're so excited. So chat is ready for this.
That is so sweet. Well, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. I'm just excited to get it into people's hands. The book itself does not make me a millionaire. I've got a publisher, which is very exciting. First time I ever wrote a book was many years ago, and I self-published. I think I make 10% of the final sale of books. And so for me, it's not really driven by money. It's driven by pure enthusiasm for people to hold this book in their hands and go, after reading this, or even after reading a chapter or two, I do not feel overwhelmed by AI. That's the goal.
That's amazing. What a huge accomplishment. Congratulations. So exciting this is coming out. We're in the final minutes here of our interview. And if there was like a piece of advice that you wanted to leave designers with or young creatives, what would that piece of advice be?
First thing that comes to mind is give yourself time and space to figure it out. Email inboxes and hectic schedules give us so much pressure, it feels like, every single day to hit a deadline or to figure things out by tomorrow. And I really feel like some of this stuff can't be solved overnight. It needs to be, when we're thinking about our brands and our brand positioning, it really is an exercise of figuring out what is it you're passionate about, right? If you won the lottery today, what would you do with your time tomorrow? The answer to that question is ideally something that has been incorporated into your brand, and it's something that fulfills you, and it's something that you get to do every single day. Don't rush that process. Don't let anyone else rush you. Just remember me over your shoulder saying, take time. to think about it, to marinate and make decisions and move forward in your careers and in your brands. Take time.
Great advice. Um, yeah, I was gonna say I would love to hear some highlights of your career if you have 1 minute highlight of it. What would it be?
Highlights, I mean, definitely standing on stages around the world. I've spoken on 5 different continents, and speaking has been one of those things that's just created an opportunity for me to like be immersed in different cultures, I would say, and be able to share information. Yeah, certainly being able to travel and do this is a huge highlight for me. Anyone who connects with me on Instagram, you should, by the way, make sure we're connected on Instagram, but I don't stay at one place too long. And I'm very grateful that my job facilitates that.
Amazing. Yes, definitely connect online with Phil because this is going to be the end of our interview here. It was so wonderful to have you. Thanks so much for taking the time and all of your wonderful answers. It was a pleasure. Chat, if you're on, definitely stick around. Up next, Corey Hall is going to be up teaching some more typography in Illustrator. So definitely don't miss out on that. And thank you so much for joining us today for another Adobe Spotlight.
Thank you so much.